In the mid-1600s, Europe found itself on the brink of disaster. The mighty Ottoman Empire, after decades of relentless expansion, had its eyes set on Vienna, the heart of Christendom. The Ottomans, led by the determined Sultan Mehmed IV, were not just a military force, they were a symbol of religious and political power. Their army, numbering over 150,000, was an overwhelming force that threatened to engulf all of Europe. If they succeeded, the Ottoman flag could fly over Vienna, and with it, the future of Europe would be forever altered. The Ottomans had already conquered vast territories across the Balkans and had their sights firmly fixed on Vienna. The city was not just a strategic military target. It was the last major Christian stronghold in their way. If Vienna fell, there would be nothing to stop the Ottomans from advancing further into Europe, toppling kingdoms and threatening the very essence of Western civilization. The stakes couldn't have been higher. Vienna was more than just a city. It was the front line in a battle for the soul of Europe. This looming threat would eventually unify diverse European factions in a fight for survival, setting the stage for the historic clash that would unfold at the gates of Vienna. As the Ottoman army marched ever closer to Vienna, the pressure on Europe reached a boiling point. Nations that had once been embroiled in bitter rivalries began to realize that their survival depended on unity. Despite decades of division, a coalition began to form, led by the Holy Roman Emperor Leopold I. But it wasn't just his call to arms that sparked this unprecedented alliance. King John III Sobieski of Poland, a renowned military leader in his own right, saw the imminent threat the Ottomans posed to Europe and knew he had to act. Sobieski's decision to join the crusade wasn't just about the survival of Vienna. It was about the survival of Europe's Christian identity. With his powerful cavalry, the Polish Winged Hussars, Sobieski's arrival was nothing short of a game changer. But it wasn't just Poland that answered the call. Troops from Bavaria, Saxony, and even distant France rallied to the defense of Vienna, each bringing their unique strategies, troops, and resources. It wasn't just a military coalition. It was a united front against an enemy that threatened the entire continent. The formation of this diverse force wasn't without its challenges. Each nation had its own goals, interests, and methods of warfare. Yet, despite these differences, the shared objective of stopping the Ottoman invasion brought them together. They put aside past disputes and, for the first time in decades, worked in harmony. This unity was not just a military strategy. It was a testament to the urgency of the situation. The Crusaders knew that if they failed here, Vienna would fall, and Europe's future would be in the hands of the Ottomans. With this realization, they marched toward the gates of Vienna, ready to fight for their lives and for the future of Europe itself. As the Ottoman forces laid siege to Vienna, the Crusaders inside the city knew they were facing a daunting challenge. The city's walls, though impressive, were no match for the sheer size and might of the Ottoman army. Yet, it was the ingenuity and determination of the defenders that would prove to be their greatest asset. The defenders knew that simply holding the walls wouldn't be enough. They needed to outsmart the Ottomans, to buy time and find a way to break the siege before it could crush them. The city was surrounded, and supplies were running low. Yet the defenders took to unconventional methods to slow down the Ottoman advance. They used the limited resources they had to create makeshift defenses, digging trenches, setting up barricades, and fortifying key positions within the city. Every street, every corner was fortified to create choke points, where Ottoman troops would be funneled into kill zones. The defenders knew they couldn't fight the Ottoman army head-on. They had to outlast them. The real brilliance came in the form of psychological warfare. The Crusaders utilized the terrain to create confusion, launching surprise counterattacks when the Ottomans least expected them. This harassed the Ottoman forces, forcing them to spread their resources thin and lose focus. But even more importantly, it showed the defenders' resilience, their refusal to simply give in to the overwhelming odds. The Ottomans had expected to capture Vienna quickly, but the longer the siege dragged on, the more uncertain their victory became. The defenders had not only fortified the city physically, but also built up a sense of hope and resolve among their ranks, something the Ottomans underestimated and ultimately paid the price for. As the siege continued and the pressure mounted, the Crusaders' moment of salvation finally arrived, and it came in the form of a bold and unexpected maneuver. The decisive turning point came when King John III Sobieski of Poland, leading a coalition of European forces, made a daring move that would forever change the course of the battle. Sobieski, known for his brilliant military tactics, recognized that the Ottomans had become complacent, believing that victory was all but assured. The defenders were worn down, the siege had dragged on for weeks, and the city's fate seemed sealed. But Sobieski saw an opening, and he acted with a speed and precision that would leave the Ottomans reeling. The Polish cavalry, the legendary Winged Hussars, were Sobieski's secret weapon. Known for their speed, discipline, and heavy armor, they were the perfect force to break through the Ottoman lines. At dawn, Sobieski led a full charge, an awe-inspiring, thunderous cavalry assault that would strike terror into the hearts of the Ottoman soldiers. With their armor glinting in the sun and their war cries echoing across the battlefield, the Winged Hussars charged directly into the heart of the Ottoman positions. The effect was immediate and devastating. The Ottomans, already stretched thin from weeks of fighting, were unprepared for such a ferocious and unexpected attack. The cavalry broke through their lines, creating chaos and panic among the Ottoman troops. The Crusaders, seeing the tide turn, rallied and pushed forward with renewed vigor, while the Ottomans, demoralized and stunned by the surprise charge, began to crumble. What started as a seemingly impossible fight turned into a resounding victory, thanks to the courage, timing, and brilliance of Sobieski and his Polish cavalry. As the Polish cavalry, led by Sobieski, cut through the Ottoman lines, the course of the battle began to shift dramatically. But it wasn't just the surprise attack that led to the Ottoman collapse. It was a combination of strategic missteps, psychological fatigue, and the disarray caused by the Crusaders' unexpected assault. For weeks, the Ottomans had believed victory was inevitable, and their confidence had bred overconfidence. However, in the chaos of the battle, their weaknesses were exposed, and their once unified force began to fracture. The Ottoman leadership had already been stretched thin. Their supply lines were precarious, and morale had begun to erode. The long siege had worn them down, and many of the soldiers, despite their superior numbers, were tired, hungry, and desperate for relief. The sudden and ferocious attack by Sobieski's cavalry sent shockwaves through the Ottoman ranks. The shock charge, which had taken them by surprise, sparked panic and confusion. What had once seemed like an unstoppable force now seemed vulnerable. The psychological toll on the Ottomans was immense. Soldiers who had once marched confidently towards Vienna now began to falter, unsure of their commander's abilities to win. This hesitation was contagious, spreading like wildfire through the ranks. As the Ottomans retreated, the Crusaders seized the opportunity, pressing forward with relentless determination. The battle that seemed destined for Ottoman victory was now slipping away from them, and they could do little to stop the unraveling of their once mighty army. By midday, the Ottomans were in full retreat, their lines broken and their morale shattered. The Crusaders, on the other hand, fought with renewed energy, knowing that victory was within their grasp. The Ottoman forces, demoralized and scattered, began to flee the battlefield, leaving behind the once imposing siege they had hoped would bring them victory. It was a stunning collapse, a testament to the power of surprise, strategy, and the indomitable spirit of the Crusaders. The aftermath of the Battle of Vienna would leave an indelible mark on European history. The Crusaders' victory over the Ottoman Empire didn't just secure the city. It altered the balance of power in Europe and marked the beginning of the end for Ottoman expansion into the continent. The crushing defeat of the Ottoman forces not only saved Vienna, but also shattered the myth of their invincibility. For years, the Ottomans had been a looming threat, and their defeat at Vienna sent shockwaves throughout the empire. Their retreat was a devastating blow to their morale, and it would take years for the Ottomans to recover from the loss. For Europe, however, this victory was nothing short of a turning point. The battle became a symbol of resistance and unity against a common enemy. The Crusader coalition, which had once been divided by regional rivalries, now stood as a testament to what could be achieved when diverse nations set aside their differences for the greater good. The success at Vienna not only reinforced the strength of European alliances, but also inspired future generations to stand united against outside threats. The victory at Vienna was also a spiritual and cultural triumph. For the Catholic Church and Christendom, it was a reaffirmation of their faith and resilience in the face of overwhelming odds. The Ottomans had been seen as an existential threat, and their defeat helped to restore the confidence of European powers, who now felt emboldened in their defense of their lands and beliefs. It also marked the beginning of a shift in European military strategy, as the Crusaders realized the importance of unity, swift action, and innovative tactics in the face of overwhelming challenges. The Battle of Vienna wasn't just a military win. It was a victory that would resonate for centuries, shaping the course of European history and changing the future of the continent forever.